Hey folks, this is Tully and welcome to some more game dev. This afternoon we're going to be taking a look at setting up a new tutorial zone. We were struggling I want to say last week, but it might have even just been last weekend or even Monday or Tuesday. But we were struggling with setting up the tutorial flow. I was kind of in this weird catch situation where I wanted to do something unique, but it felt like it was going to feel like it was the standard way that the game was going to play out, and I was kind of caught in this rock and a hard place where I just didn't want to necessarily have this unique experience in the initial tutorial zones because I didn't want to set a precedent. This was how the game was going to operate. It was meant to be like a one-off special case, and in an effort to try and like distance ourselves from that experience, namely you getting your first ability through the goddess or through the tutorial being the way you get abilities, and try and make it more clear that this is the only for your first ability do you get it this way. We're going to try something different. We're going to make it so that the narrative of the game is shifted a little bit. Instead of you getting pulled into this world by the goddess and isekai'd into a fantasy world in a forest, and you start from the basic and work your way up to defeating the demon lord, we're instead going to have the goddess send you directly into the demon lord's castle for the very first run. We're going to make it so that that run is not failable, and you are going to steal some sort of artifact that is necessary to defeat the demon lord out from under their nose. We do have to do a little bit of like narrative, jumping through hoops to make sure it's clear that that is a one-time event, that the goddess was able to do that. It used the last of her powers and she is much weaker for it. But you have this great artifact of power which is going to level up with you. I think this solves a lot of our problems with the early tutorials, while also kind of creating interesting moments that pulls hopefully the player into the world. If we can pull it off well. It might not work, but I think it's worth a shot. So, we looked at the ability shoot stuff this morning. That went well. Now we're going to tackle these kind of setup of these new rooms. Namely, we're thinking we want to have 3 rooms for this. It's going to be a fairly short sequence, but still hopefully it feels impactful. If we need to, we can expand it, but it's really just going to be like, hey, jumping into the world, learning about pushing back kind of the demon lord's influence, allowing you to reveal more tiles, and eventually gaining access to that item before unceremoniously being defeated by a very high-end enemy, which will then push you back into the normal kind of flow of the game that we wanted in the first place. So Drixie has set up this demon lord room, the very first one, TO1, which will be the very first tutorial room in this area, using Forest 001's layout as like a base, and then has set up this simple floor tile. This is reusing some old tile assets from Heir of Embers, so we just took a simple brick tile that we had from a while back that we were really happy with and had spent a lot of time kind of constructing, and she's added like some little debris and like little bits of cracks and stuff in order to kind of break up the flow. But overall, I think this is pretty good. The next big problem we're going to solve is going to be walls. So if we're going to do this, if we're going to create this space, I feel like we need to have not just like trees and bushes like we've been doing in other parts of the game, but we're going to need like hard edge walls along the outer edge to make it feel like we're in an interior, which we have not done yet. There's kind of a couple of different approaches that I have to this, but I'm going to start with what I think is going to be the easiest, which is enabling some systems I had a while ago and see how they're working. Because I had created the ability to generate walls, but we've since moved more towards sprites and props. Actually, before I go too much further, I want to talk about why we can't just use those billboards to be our walls. So if we look in here, let's bring the game view above. We'll put the scene view up here. And then if we zoom in on one of these, there we go. And then let's select one of these. Yeah, maybe we do it along the middle here. So let's do center, and let's see here. We have fences. Drixie tried making a stone wall front piece, and the idea was that this would be, I guess, at the front, so it was designed to actually be on this side. So front stone wall, and then 14 would be a centerpiece, mid stone wall, and then this would be like a back piece. And this doesn't work mostly because of the fact that we have shadows in the game. And so what's happening, even though these would line up perfectly to kind of create like this kind of wall shape, number one, it's in the center of the tile. And we're kind of having this like we're missing a bit of the slope angle if this was to look like it's one solid piece, as well as it's got the shadows being cast from one another. We did try doing something before this that gave us kind of maybe a bit of false hope, where we had this kind of front wooden piece, this center here for a middle wooden fence, and then this one here, which is a back wooden fence. And if we move here out of the way, that actually looks okay. But what's actually happening here is just the way that we happen to draw it. Let's exit ISO mode and look at this in 3D space. The way we happen to draw it, you're just not getting a lot of shadow. You are getting a little bit here, which you can kind of just barely make out that this part of the rope is a bit darker where they connect. But otherwise, we're not really seeing too much problems from that, the way that it's kind of breaking up. But it doesn't work for walls. Again, luckily I've kind of already solved some of these problems. So let's see if we can get that functional, and then we'll talk about how the walls work, and potentially why we might even want to do it a little bit different from the way that I had it done in the past. So if we go digging, we're going to need to go look at a tile to start with, the tile class, .cs. In here, we should have something that handles the wall stuff, and I made sure not to delete it a few streams ago because I thought I might need to come back to it, and here we are a few streams later needing it. We had this idea of let's go into tile data, and then inside of here there should be a parameter for content object addressable. So this thing, essentially it is trying to load up a content addressable ID the same way we would normally do like a billboard, essentially. This all looks to be intact. The part of this that I think doesn't work, actually we may have left it completely intact. This may still function. What is this doing? I see. Yeah, that shouldn't be needed anymore. Not for this call. This might just work, actually. So the walls worked a little bit differently from the other pieces. I was thinking it would make sense for these to be similar to the floors originally. So I made a lot of these more like the wall system or the floor system, so it's actually based off of the geometry of the level. So if I make a wall piece here by making it a raised part of the environment, it will try and generate walls in that area. So if we save that, ooh, we do run into bugs. Tile data. Interesting. Let's look at this in 2D. So when I raycast the environment, I basically create a tile map, because this is how we used to build our game. It used to be based off of like sprites and stuff. And I'm essentially repurposing a lot of that old code to essentially create wall pieces. But because there's a lot of logic in how the walls get configured, and I'm essentially using that to construct the assets that we need and what direction each piece of the wall should be facing. But this does not work anymore, and I'm not entirely sure what this error is. Well, I know what the error is. It's trying to add another piece of tile data where it already thinks there should be a piece of tile data. So I think what the problem might be is that we're both hitting a floor piece and a wall piece, but even that doesn't feel like it should cause this type of problem, because our raycasting essentially just raycasts downwards, and so it shouldn't really care. Well, it shouldn't really be able to hit the floor. Is it too tall? No. Okay. So getting this back online and functional is going to be a little bit more work than I hoped. I kind of expected this to just function. Last thing we'll try is we'll try pulling this out so it's too wide instead. That looks to be the same problem. Too wide, too tall? Same problem. Okay. So it's not to do with the dimensions of the walls. It's still having some sort of issue. And if we get rid of this high piece here and then raycast again, we have no problems and we generate everything correctly. Okay. Next thing we'll try is we'll try deleting or moving in these pieces so that there's only the wall here and nothing else. Same bug. Okay. Well, trial and error is not getting us there, so let's try the simplest version again. And let's see what's happening. Now, hopefully, when we raycast the environment, we should be able to get to that breakpoint here. And this will probably be fine for the majority of it. It's only going to be on the spot where we have the crash. Let's see if we can see when that happens. We can't. Interesting. So I was hoping it would crash and give us some data on the break, but it's not going to do that. So we will instead check to see whether or not this contains value. Probably key. Contains key with this information. Just trying to create some code to put a breakpoint at. Okay, let's run that again and see if we can now get into the spot where it contains the key right before it would add the key again. So that would be here. Tile data. Northwest 0, 0. Interesting. So you're going to tell me then it's going to break here in a moment. Interesting. 0, 0 is where it's breaking. Interesting. This is 2 entries, 0, 0, and 210. And we are getting back to 0, 0 again. We are on Y2, X11, Z negative 2. Unlockable characters with the hydration, seen and redeeming. Well, I'm sufficiently confused. So there's only been 2 things been added, even though we've looped through a large amount of the data at this point. One of the data is for a wall piece. What is the other piece of data? Value, data, position is here, otherwise everything else is null about it. So we basically generated 1 wall tile. Is the one we're trying to create right now a wall tile? No, because it doesn't have a content ID. And the original one that was already added in position 0, 0 was also not a wall tile. But we're... Interestingly, we're not even at position... 0, 0? Wait, does that imply we didn't enter into any of these? What's the tile type? Deco. Okay then. So it found a tile, underground floor deco tile of type deco. Ah, okay. Okay, I think I've got it. So this is a really old system, but essentially I had the ability to generate 2 pieces of information here. When I raycast the environment, I can raycast with lower walls or with high walls. There was a couple of different ways that I was experimenting with generating my tile maps from TSV data at the time. And that, I think, is generating a deco tile. Okay, so if I clear this and then raycast without the low turned on, does that work? Yes. So it's because we had this low wall tick box on, which is an old thing, and I guess the walls don't work with it? I suppose that makes sense in a very weird way. Now, these are walls, so it has set them up correctly because I can't walk in these spots. And I should be able to walk over here because we didn't extend it all the way. But it is not generating the prop. I'm going to guess that's because it couldn't find one. Yes, it couldn't find assets with those names. Because we are in the Demon Castle. So if we go into, let's see, addressable groups, and we look for corner, we're going to find Fields Wall Corner, which was one of the types we had originally set up for this. So we had set up a couple of these under Fields. If we come in here, we now need to make a couple of variations of these just for testing purposes. Oh, did I? Sometimes I want to copy and paste, and it does not like doing that from the folder it's in. I always forget. I think it's Control D to duplicate. I feel like I've been using too many other programs lately, and I have forgotten the ways of Unity. Okay. Control D to duplicate these objects. We're going to call this castle Demon Castle. And this will be Demon Castle Wall Corner. And these should have similar names. Yes, addressable. Looks like the name of the object should match the name of the addressable, is the formatting I had gone with. Okay. So then, if we come back over here, I want to check to make sure that matches what it was trying to create, and it does not, because it was trying to add an extra underscore to the names. So it does dungeon name plus content addressable ID plus content object prefix. Okay. Now, is that not set up correctly in here? Kind of. Let's put another breakpoint in. I just want to see exactly how it's constructing this and what each piece is. So in here, dungeon name is going to be Demon Castle. This will be blank. And this will be corner. So it's adding an unnecessary underscore in here kind of at the moment. And it's missing the word wall. Okay, yeah, I see it. Yeah, it's just missing the word wall. If I add the word wall, we will no longer have that unnecessary underscore. So this had some old parameters. I'm guessing I copy and pasted this room setup from one of the examples that didn't have the walls. And I had only done the wall work in one specific room. Okay. So those are some walls being set up. They are set up to be in the space. And I believe they are rendering pixel perfect. If we zoom all the way in here, this all looks perfectly aligned to me. But if we look at them in engine, they look a little bit different. There's a bit of work that I had to do in order to get this set up correctly, but I'm pretty sure if we take a look at these, we should be able to find examples. So this is using this wall side object. If we show this in the Explorer, and then I'll just open this up in Aseprite. This object is 16 by 30. Ah, yes. Okay. So the way this is operating is you draw it flat. And then I'm pretty sure that every single pixel will map to one part of the wall. It just stair steps them down every time. Yes. So basically it takes these two rows here and they display on the far left of the wall. And then this next one goes down like 1 or 2 pixels and then displays. Which creates essentially a pixel perfect layout on these walls. Just everything is isometrically cut a little bit, and you can kind of really see that here on this kind of like lighter color part of the brick. It's just staircasing along, but in Aseprite that's just represented here. If we continue that line here, we'll see that that connects perfectly all the way around. Okay, so yeah, so that is working exactly how we want. It's not like Drixie can draw the art exactly how it'll appear in game, but Drixie can draw the art to look quote unquote good, and it'll just get like kind of staircased to make it ISO. Kind of through the natural rendering. That might be fine, honestly. That might be fine. I was thinking I was going to have to do a lot more work, but this is why I wanted to start with like setting this up again and making this functional. We do have a problem where the walls are facing the wrong way. These walls should all be rotated in a slightly different direction. So where is that rotation supposed to be done? Well, it's not there. None of these walls are rotated. Let's try adding another kind of cube on this side over here. Let's try rendering that out. That looks like it imported okay. I didn't see any errors. And these aren't rotated either. Okay, this implies that a piece of my code is not hooked up correctly. So whatever is doing object direction inside of the tile to quaternion, I don't think is working correctly. Oh, odd. I didn't notice this when I was copy and pasting all of these, but all of our props are also using that rotation logic. I don't think that matters because they're billboards, so they all get set up, but we probably should not be doing that. How does it yeah, okay. How does it determine the direction? Oh, I see why you, I guess. Okay, so essentially I'm doing a bunch of like... I'm building on tools on tools on tools, so it's like this weird wobbly foundation of oddness. But essentially, if we were to look at the environment that we generate in the tile map, every single one of these tile map objects come from like a tile palette. So if we come down in here somewhere, sewer is what the space was called in Air of Embers. Yeah. If we come down into here, we have a bunch of different wall assets that all get generated through some more really neat tools to make a bunch of tiles. Those tiles have a bunch of wall pieces, and I manually set up each of these to have a direction associated with them. And so depending on which tile gets found to be used, it tries to spawn a tile prefab, which will have a wall set up with the same type of texturing, and then the facing is based off of whatever I put into here in this drop down, which doesn't clearly match because this is a south facing piece and this is a west facing piece, which means that at some point my directionality between Air of Embers and Infinite Retries changed. It's fine as long as I'm consistent, it's just confusing. So then let's take a look at this debug here again. Let's see if that value is changing. When we raycast. I would expect that there should be at least a couple of different directions coming out of this. So this sample is southwest north, which has southwest as its direction, and that gets set to southwest. Then this one here is north, okay. This is north. This is north. 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 We've reached the corner. This implies the values are just not set up correctly, because we're getting a lot of north here. For a lot of different pieces. Interesting. So basically every single one of those came back as north. We're going to keep testing. Let's bring this one over. We should be able to just place it in the center. It doesn't really care where it is. Let's do that. We hit more breakpoints. Southwest, north, north. I want to make sure this isn't edited anywhere, right? No. Just gonna see if this ever changes down here. No. It does not. So it's always coming back as north no matter where I position stuff, even though we clearly have several different kinds of wall directions here. I guess it's because they're all... Oh, that's why. Yeah, okay. Because they're all narrow, they're all, like, kind of invalid. Did I build the system in a way that I require the walls to be at least too thick in order for it to really have a facing? Probably, because otherwise I don't know which way it's facing. It has two sides. That would make sense. Okay, exit 2D mode. So if we just extend the size of these walls a little bit so that they're at least too wide. Does it work now? Yeah, I'm seeing west. North. Okay. And then if we were to run it... Ooh, but we hit an error. Fun, fun, fun. I'm still going to let it run. Kind of. Kind of. So it does need to be at least too thick in order for it to make a decision about which way it should be facing. Also, we can probably undo the red line here. It's a neat example of like showing how this gets converted into like a pixel perfect wall piece, but it doesn't really need to be there, I don't think. Also, I don't love the reflection of light on this. I might need to pull the shader up and modify that. Interesting that the back pieces don't work either. Some definite oddities going on. Because they definitely should be set up correctly. Although it is kind of cool that it just works and just made the extra tiles. Do we still have the original scene that I probably did this work in, actually? Because it was called Fields, right? We do. I don't know if this one's gonna run because this was one of the very first dungeons I set up. I'm gonna overwrite the world art and then rerun Fields. FR. Let's give it a shot. Let's see what this one loads up like and how it functions. Much errors. Mostly around the prefabs it contains. Walls, fields, room geo. Default tile terrain, none. Yeah, this is probably too old to work, but this was essentially set up with just a simple, like, 2 pieces hanging off the edge. Did I see some code actually that's supposed to limit this? I did. Interesting. So I think what I'm doing is I'm drawing out the whole map, but I think I made a call that anything too far out gets cut off. Oh, and these pieces are not... I see. I see what it is. Okay, cool. Good. I'm glad I came over here. So essentially these pieces here, this is where the exit tile is. I set it up the walls originally to be outside the main play space. So they're on the edge of the world, which means because of that special casing I added to not do anything below 1 or above 18, that means these tiles here are never getting pulled into the tile map data because they're too far outside the bounds of the map. And I'm pretty sure I was making the walls just now in our new scene on the edge. So I would need to move them out to here and out to here. And then we can probably delete this inner one. And then that lays out nicely, and then if we hit run, we should just see just the edge of the wall. I don't love that limitation. I would like to be able to place walls internally as well. Ah. There's also the problem that the side of the wall needs to extend all the way around too, because we never know whether or not we're going to be bringing up the wall one at a time or not. Okay. So there's some weird shadowing happening with the lighting. Which I suppose is fine. We may have to do some custom light code at some point. Not for right now, but in the future. I think those are walls, though? I mean, I really don't like the fact that they have to be set up on the edge of the board in order for them to function, and then I need to extend them a little bit into the void. I get why I set it up the way I did, though, because, like, so the you but I guess thing is because the tile map is already doing all the logic to figure out whether or not a wall is facing a floor piece and where the other pieces around it are. And so the tile map logic I originally built a long time ago essentially gives me this information for free, which allows me to determine the rotation. So the ew, I guess, but yeah, I guess, is because it's really handy to just be able to grab that information and just use it. And it does function, but in order for it to work, it does require that the walls be too thick, because otherwise it starts defaulting them to essentially alternating wall tiles, but I have no idea how to use that. No, I do. No, I know. If we take a look here, I also added a content object prefix. So if we take a look into the tiles again, each of these have a prefix to them, whether or not they're corner or not corner, essentially. But I could say a north-south wall that is narrow could have a narrow prefix. And I could make another prefab that has the texture on either side, just like we do with the tile map. And I could essentially create the exact same thing that I build with the tile map rules in 3D. In fact, that was probably my intent with why I added the prefix beyond just the corners. And then these ones are just corners, but they probably should be inverse corners, because that's why the corner looks weird. Like, it looks fine here, this little corner. This tile is essentially just a little tiny, like, square with just a little edge of the wall, basically. But it's not doing that in the engine right now when we walk up to the corner, because it's just using a regular piece. I'm not giving it enough data. So this one should be an inverse corner prefab, which I would need to create, which shouldn't be too hard. The nice thing about 3D is I don't have to make nearly as many assets. I just make one and then rotate it, opposed to the tile map stuff where I had to make a new texture for every single one. Okay. Okay, yeah, this is solvable. Let's start making some variations of these. I'm going to start by finding where all this stuff lives, because I'm going to guess most of this is prototype logic, and a lot of the actual prefabs are still existing under Era of Embers, even though it should be under the Infinite Retries folder structure. Let's see here. Maybe it's not. It is not. Okay, it does live up here inside of Infinite Retries. So we have Demon Castle Wall and Corner. Let's make copies of all this. We technically won't have any fields yet, but I don't know, it just feels easier to just start over. Just so that we don't get into any weirdness. Okay, those are all the same. Then if we open this prefab up, this is essentially just a cube. We do want to add the extra side to it though. Oh, I don't want to do this. Where does this live? This lives here. We're going to need to bring this back into Blender, and we're going to need to bring in an extra wall face. Honestly, probably should just make it a full wall piece. Are any of these full? No, because I optimized them all out so that they only have one side facing. And that made sense when we were doing Era of Embers, because it was a pre-built dungeon, everything was just existing, and so you never had to worry about this problem that I'm running into now, which is that you reveal one tile at a time, which means you can't guarantee that the sides aren't going to be showing at some point. I hate getting the facing right, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how to explain it, but every time I built one of these things, there's this constant trial and error struggle of just trying to get like the directionality of the faces right. If it built the triangles the wrong way around, it would just completely break all of my pixel perfect logic, or the not logic, but the pixel perfect nature of things. All right, let's just start with getting these ones mapped with the new materials. And we can see about changing out later. Okay, and now that that's done, I want to take a look at this thing. So this is metallic. We probably want to turn down the smoothness and just try and get rid of some of that shine that we're seeing in the game. Let's see if that helps with some of the lighting we were seeing. It probably needs a full shader pass at some point. Yeah, that's still not 100%. Like, these dark parts should be 100% their color and should not be affected by lighting at all. I guess the easiest way to fix that would be to come into Universal Render Pipeline and make this an unlit texture. Yeah, probably. This is going to mess with shadows, because we do cast shadows, but at least things are not glowing, which is better. We can see the coloring has kind of shifted from these old walls to these kind of more modern look. Now these wall textures are going to need a redo as well, because they're very much the old kind of sewer look we were trying to go for. Likely going to want to shift to something that's a little bit more in line with this kind of demon castle area. Should also make a system to be able to change the sides of the tiles. That's something I haven't really bothered with, and we've had this kind of green everywhere in all of the scenes. That's still an improvement. We'll take the matte color shaders for now. I'm going to try and fix this to be multi-faced. I'll just add all four corners to it, I think. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, where's Blender? Hey, we still had Blender open from this morning's stream where we are importing the slime as a pixel art, or as pixel art. Let's make a new file, general. No, we don't need to save this. Alright, this needs no information at all in it. It's completely empty. And we need to import the file. This is an FBX, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do this over here real quick. Import FBX. Going to collapse down some things. Assets, infinite retries, content, art. Is that where this was? Art dungeon shared. Models. Okay. So we're going to bring this thing in. We're going to bring in the corner wall. I think it's fine to leave all this other stuff in its current state. None of this should really matter. So we're going to import that, which becomes this. It has no shading information associated with it. Partly it looks like because it can't find the textures, because these moved at some point. That being said, it has a lot of information to all of them. So we can open them. I could just ignore all this, because if I go to wireframe mode, we should be able to see whether or not... Oh, see, this is the problem, is it brings it in as a pure cube, but Unity doesn't view it that way. Welcome back, Amorphous. Good job doing all the chores. Game's going good. We are continuing to work away at building out a Demon Lord's castle space. Essentially making it so that we bring back walls. This is a system I had built a few months back, and we've been slowly getting it up and running and figuring out how it works again, just because it's been so long I'd forgotten most of it. But the edge of these walls are no render, basically, because they were originally intended to be part of Heir of Ember's dungeon creation, which was meant to be a whole dungeon built all at once, and I didn't want to worry about drawing planes that didn't need to exist. But because we're now building out each tile piece by piece, I need to actually make it so that these things have edges to them. Yeah, I think so. I'm realizing this one doesn't have this problem. So if we flipped this and then rotated the material on top, technically we could still get away with a single piece. The question is it worth the trouble? Like, it's potentially a lot of triangles that we're saving right now. Anyways, I'm just trying to solve things. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to get all these walls to show up in order to make this feel more like an interior rather than in the forest where we were trying to make it feel more like an exterior. Stretch Redemption, thank you. I've been standing for a while. It's good to switch things up. Let's go back to sitting. The body does not like static. It needs to keep moving. I'll be back. Amorphous, you can't start the hype train as you're asking me to stretch. You can't do it. It's not... Okay. Thank you very much, as always, for the additional subs. They will be going towards getting Drixie a new mic, more than likely. Very much appreciated. Whoa. That's cool. Okay. It's also neat that you gifted 5 and then there's like a message that Valorant also gifted 1. That's cool. I guess that's like a promotion happening with Twitch right now. Okay. Oh, I need to turn myself back on. The chaos, the excitement, the train. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna try making a new version of the wall with all 4 faces. It can't hurt to have it. Now, how do we do this most easily? Let's go to modeling. Yeah, that's more the view I'm looking for. And then we need to make a new vertice. So we're gonna extrude downwards, but we want to give it a very specific position, which is the vertex needs to have the... Oh, actually it's just 50-50. Okay, 50. And then this needs to be 0, so it's straight down, and then 50. Ooh, nailed it. Okay. Now we need to select these are vertices, and the order does matter, and I don't remember what it's supposed to be, and we're going to hit fill. We're going to hit these vertices, and we're going to hit fill. Okay. I don't know why marking this as a sharp edge matters, but we're going to ignore it. I also like that now the weekly top gifters is now Eumorphous and then Valorant with 1. The leaderboards. All right, so this should be something. I don't know if it's going to have the textures on right. What's going to happen is if I've done this with the wrong directionality on the selection of these vertices, it will display the texture with the wrong kind of UV offsetting, basically. There might be a better way to understand how to fix this, but in my experience, changing which vertices I chose was the thing that made the biggest impact. So we'll export this. Okay, and then we will do here infinite retries, content, art, dungeons, props, nope, not props, shared, models, and this will be full wall, I guess, is probably a fair name for it. This all seems fine. These may matter, some of these values, I'm not entirely sure. Okay, so we bring that in. That's going to make a full wall, which is very weirdly textured. So let's see if we can fix it. Amorphous, you can't just keep the hype train going by yourself. You can't. I don't know what it does. Looks like it unlocks emotes, maybe? Neat. Good. Alright, let's see if we can figure out if this wall is textured correctly. Let's reduce all this down, and then we'll bring in a wall piece. That should have went to 0, 0. Okay. So it did texture around the outside. Let's change these out from these wall face materials that are built into it. Did the other ones have materials built in? They didn't. So okay, that implies that when we export this, we might want to export it with some other tick boxes. Magnus says in Twitch chat, yeah, Hype Train concludes everyone who contributed unlocks an emote depending on what level the train got to, and then proceeded to also gift 5 subs, which then triggered another one from Valorant. Again, much appreciated. I feel like we have locked in everyone who's come by recently with a sub. Oh, interesting. So we don't have that many folks here, although we are up to 8 viewers. But there are new followers I don't see in some of these lists, but names I don't recognize getting subs, so it must just choose randomly. If someone's not here, it must choose from the follower list or something, I would guess. Neat. All right, sorry. Let's fix this. So we're going to export FBX. I'm going to bring this off over here again. I don't know what it's showing. Some random folders, my C drive, some recent. What did it show up here? Showed my documents folder, which had a bunch of random files I've downloaded for basically all game dev stuff, because that's what all of this account is for. Weird. Yeah, and a bunch of examples that I mostly haven't used, honestly, in a long time. Alright, whatever. So if we re-export this here, and we say only select objects, no... Can we choose not to send out the materials? How do we choose to get rid of the materials? maximize this for a second. This includes this. This is probably all fine. I think some of these values might be needed to change for Unity outputting, but I can't quite remember. Geometry applies modifiers, sure. Armature, fine. Animation, we're not doing any of that stuff, so I don't think it should matter. Maybe if we change it to mesh only, it'll only export the mesh. Let's try that. No, still seeing the materials come out with it. Did I turn off the material importing on this one? Looking for the keywords material. The algorithm is random and hard to predict. Fair enough. I'm not seeing an option here for material importing. Oh, here. Oh, it does have them. Then did I... Oh, I probably extracted them. I see. And then I can delete them. Neat. If I want, or I can keep them. Okay, I probably should keep them. It just looks like I extracted them and pulled them out. File, export, FBX, let's try this again. Full wall. Let's extract those materials. Let's put them in the same folder. I don't know if this matters. I'm just trying to replicate whatever I had done months ago. Seems like an okay idea. So then if I change these ones here... Well, I can't really change them, can I? Yeah, all the wall faces are just completely busted. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's very tricky, I find, to get Unity to export my information correctly, or Blender to export the information correctly. And I don't know what the settings were that I exported this with last time. I don't have like a full wall version just lying around, do I? Like an old school one from before. Yeah, this one's broken up into several pieces. This one's broken up into several pieces. I did so much work, and it doesn't matter because I didn't write it down. And because I didn't write it down, I may never be able to figure it out. Well, that's probably untrue. I can probably figure it out eventually. It's just going to take me time to figure out what the heck the settings were. Cool. Neat. Hype chest unlocked. Anamorphous now has an icon for current hype train conductor. Very cool. That's neat. We have not played with that stuff a lot, I don't feel like, but very cool. Okay, so let's see here. What we probably should do then is we should probably start by trying to get it to render the information correctly in here. So we should actually track down this file. I'm gonna do this off camera as well because I don't know what it's opening. So we're trying to find wherever the actual textures are, which is probably inside of materials. Actually, let's look for them in here. So inside of the corner walls, which were prefabs here, the textures are up in here. They're in dungeons, fields, shared is where the materials currently are. Okay, so models. Art. dungeons, shared. No. Fields shared. This folder structure needs cleaning up. Textures. And then we need wall top. And we need wall side. Okay, so if we now select here on different sides of this thing, can we choose which face we're trying to select? Shading. We can change this to be one of the ones I just brought in. Wall top. Why are you slightly transparent in here? This is new. I've not seen this problem. I assume that's a problem with it rendering cycles? No, still not fully rendering it. Is it because we're missing the data here? It is. We don't have the normal map. And without the normal map, it's breaking. Okay, so then if we come back into the UV shading, delete the normals on this one as well, we can see that it's mostly working on two sides, but not the third. So these are the original two sides, and they work okay. Does this one work okay as well? Yes, I think that one is working correctly. But this one does not. So we're going to delete the face, and we are going to go back to vertex select mode, and we are going to choose to fill these vertices in a different way. So we'll go from top left around. That doesn't work. So then we will undo the creation of that face, and then we'll choose here and go this way. That doesn't work. Let's go this way. I'm going to assume that continuing to do the same direction over and over again is not going to work, but I'm going to keep trying. Nope. And then let's try going the other way. So we'll start here and go backwards. No, still not working. Okay. What if we alternate which ones we select? No. So then we need to modify the UV mapping then probably of this thing. Face select here. That's mapping correct. That's mapping correct. That's mapping correct. That is not mapping correct. So let's grab these vertice points. There's probably going to be, if we go edge mode, we can select that vertice, and we should see it over here as well. But we do not. We do not see any vertice data here. If we select this one, nothing. This one, nothing. And this one, nothing. If we select edges, do we get any more information? No. But if we select faces, we can choose this one, and we can see part of it here. And we can even modify it. We need to turn on like syncing or something like that. God, it's been so long since I've played with Blender stuff. Live unwrap? Is that what I'm looking for? Maybe different question. What material is this using? If we go to here, can we get material data somewhere? Here? Yes. Okay, this is using wall face. This is also using wall face. We can assign wall face to this. And that is working. Nope, that didn't do anything. I just want to assign... Ooh, I saw something that could work. Copy UVs. Paste UVs. No, of course not. Why would that work? UV... Reveal hidden face. No, that didn't work either. Reset. Okay. That at least got the vertices showing up, which is nice. So now if we select each of these, we should be able to rotate their positions. So this should become 1 and this should become 0 probably. Maybe not. Let's just rotate each of them. So let's just grab them and move them like this. We're going to move this here. We're going to grab this one, bring it down here. We're going to grab this one, bring it over here. And then we're going to grab this one and bring it up here. Is that close? Kind of. So then we'll just round these off to 1s and 0s. I'm remembering slowly. 1, 0, 0, 0. Well, I mean, it kind of worked. I literally got it upside down. Okay. That looks to be correct. So I think we fixed the UVs. And they all should be assigned to use the same material. So we should just be able to export that now as an FBX file. Export FBX. We're going to keep all the settings the same and just choose export full wall. I brought that in. But we've now proceeded to break all of the walls. Well, what I'll say, chat, is that this is the nightmare. Welcome to it. We either play with the FBX exporting, or I keep rotating the UVs, because something about the UVs in Unity versus the UVs in Blenders, something isn't lining up, or some setting is not being set correctly. I'm not going to fix it on camera, though. I will continue to play with it. If folks want to know how I fixed it, leave a comment on the YouTube video or whatever, but like I'm not going to spend the next 45 minutes here just rotating UVs trying to see if I can get it to work, because it's probably going to be trial and error like the last time I did it, which is why I sighed when I realized I needed the full walls, because I realized I was going to have to do this again. This time I'll write it down, though, I suppose. I think I missed the hydrate from unlockable characters. I'm going to go grab some more water, and I'll be right back in 2 seconds. When we come back, I think I'm just going to accept that the walls are broken, but I kind of want to build more prefabs with different layouts for the UVs on top. We're not doing it, Amorphous. We're not doing it. I'll be right back. Cool. So let's see if we can generate some more wall prefabs so that we can have more variation here. I want to start with seeing if we can get different textures on top of the wall, because obviously if we can't do that, the prefabs don't really matter. So we're going to grab corner wall. We're going to keep using that as our base one until I can figure out how to import a version that has all of the faces on it. But I think this shouldn't matter too much because we should be able to just swap the mesh once we figure it out. So I don't think this is blocking. Let's change these facings. So we're going to change this to be the wall. And then for the top, instead of using corner top, we will use inverse corner top, which is I think the naming convention I had from before. We're going to go take a quick look at the old tiles. It looks like I would name things inverse at the very beginning, full caps, or fully written out. I will do that for now. And we will give it this piece. And then... Oh, interesting. These ones are set up in a weird way. Why do I do that? Oh, that's why some of them look good and some of them look bad. Okay, so essentially for anything that's on the floor, we have to generate this weird texture. We do this a lot for our like full floor stuff, where we generate these odd kind of like shapes of like weird spacings. But it's mostly because that when we actually render this stuff out, Unity essentially grabs only certain pixels because of the angle of our camera. And I've figured out exactly mathematically which ones it chooses. And I have a little script that like essentially changes the art to be pixel perfect. Weirdly, it doesn't look like this one has that effect. But this one is using that top texture. Oh, I guess because it's a 3D model, it's a little bit more odd. But these ones here aren't using that texture. These top walls are just using a regular piece, which means that this isn't going to be displaying every one of those pixels perfectly. It's choosing randomly some of these, which is why this looks a bit like a muddy mess, when it should look like, well, not like, it's still kind of just a mossy brick wall, but still there's like pixels that are missing from this shape. So I also need to figure out how to regenerate these textures if I'm going to make new tops for them, which shouldn't be too bad. We have a tool for this. This is under not room processor, not particles, not JRPG stuff. Tile importer or sprite processor? What does the sprite processor do? Yeah. Okay. So this will run a console app that I've built and turn something ISO to 3D. I think that's what I want, but I need to figure out where this is being modified. So let's go look for where the script exists. So ISO to 3D. It's going to look in infinite retries, content, art, dungeons, and then whatever the folder name we gave. And it's going to run through that, and it's going to try and find everything, basically. Hey, Drixie, welcome to the stream. Okay. So it's going to search everything under art dungeons. So everything under here. So if I run this, this might actually touch a lot of textures. This may not be what we want anymore, because I think this is too broad of a path. We've added way too much stuff to dungeons. Just gonna grab all the PNG files and I'm gonna run them as final. Ah, I see. Okay. So this is an early... Wait, is this what our room processor does? Behind the scenes? Room processor window? Yeah, okay. So essentially our room processor is just using this ISO to 3D, but instead of having to run it every single time for each section, it does it okay. Got it. So I'm going to change this folder. Instead of doing dungeons, it's going to grab a new folder. Ooh, this is probably going to break our room processor then. Does it require the string have something specific in its name in order to operate? Does not look like it. Oh, it does. It needs to have the word final. Okay. Okay, so then if I just make a new texture, let's go grab that. Wow, this might actually work really easily then. I don't need to touch or modify much. Let's go to fields shared. Let's grab this wall top. Let's drop that in there. Let's call it wall top final, all caps. And then if we run the room processor, which is currently behind my head, I think, on demon space castle, no, underscore castle. No. I can't see where it works in the code, but I guess technically I should be able to do this. And that does work, actually. That generates a version of the file. It doesn't look like it generates it correctly, though. This doesn't look right, but we can try it. So if we come in here and we swap the texture this thing's using, top, to use this new version here. Yeah, it's like on an angle. Yeah, something's wonky about this. So we can't treat it like a room. Okay. So this is the setup. I'm confused why it only works on files that have work in progress in the name. I must have some sort of code in here that's only allowing those to be the ones chosen, but it looks like we're mostly caring about, oh, we use final to determine whether or not we add it to the packed assets. That's not what causes it to determine whether or not it gets chosen to be processed. Yeah, that's running the console app. Search for WIP to see, like, where is that getting used? I really wanted to just build the map today, but it's clear that we have a lot of old code to look at in order to just get this up and running. But this is important because it's going to allow Drixie to kind of build out more spaces if we can get kind of these walls up and running in here. rather than just billboarded props. I do think this is the setup we want. I just need to figure out how to get a couple of these tools to work. Interestingly, nothing in here uses work in progress, besides some scripting stuff. Oh, is it hard-coded into the console app? Oh, let's go take a look at the console app. Let's see if we run this thing. What version of Visual Studio are we in? 2019? Okay, let's give that a shot. We're going to try opening up the console app and see how this thing works. God, it has been a long time since I've looked at this. So this is essentially a console app that just takes in a file from a specific folder, basically, and then it does a bunch of different logic to generate a... It does a bunch of image processing, is really the best way to put it. Yeah, and ISO 3D requires the file have work in progress in order for it to process it. And ISO to 3D is taking in a bitmap, looping through every pixel within that bitmap, figuring out, constructing a map coordinates for the size of the source. Okay, so it basically takes the thing and makes a bitmap of the same size, except for the width is used twice here. This feels like a bug, but because we always do square maps, it's not a big deal, and that's still going to be true here. Gets the map coordinates. Huh. And this essentially does a bit of math. This is the secret sauce. So it's taking the pixel and moving it to a new pixel is all this is really doing. As long as that pixel is within the bounds, we set the new pixel map to have item 1 and item 2. Okay. Yeah, so this thing should just work then. It should take any image and then just like make it appear correctly. Oh, got it. Okay, so this system assumes that you're giving it an ISO texture though, and then it's going to create it into a non-ISO version. This is a flat texture and we're passing it in, so that doesn't work. So we need to make a texture that is the appropriate size of the floor. Okay, I can do that. I can do that. So let's come in here. Let's delete all of these cubes, or at least turn all these cubes off. And then let's just grab one of them. Let's move it into the center somewhere. And let's make it a 1 by 1. And then if we save, that should generate a new version of the map for this dungeon, which should be 1 pixel. Oh, I put it in between tiles, I think. What is going on with my perspective? Oh. Yeah, that would do it. Okay. So turn it into an object and then move it over one. Then save. Now this should be exactly one tile size. So now we can open this in Aseprite. And this is the exact size of one of our floors, which will also be corresponding to the exact size of one of our wall pieces. And so then let's undo all that because I want this map to look the way it looked before. So we're going to put everything back together. Okay. And then if we come into here, and then let's magic wand, delete this. Let's make a new texture. Copy this up to here. Then delete. There we go. Now we get our transparency. Let's bring the canvas in so the canvas is the exact right size. Okay. And then if we do just some different line colors here, let's do something like that. And then we'll grab that magic wand style, copy, paste. Move it over a bit. And then we will select like blue. And do that. And then copy. And then do, I don't know, green. Okay, and then if we grab all of that, copy, paste, put that, oh, it needs to be 4 wide. So let's grab one more color, maybe a yellow. And then if we grab all of this, paste it. That is a pretty identifiable pattern. We can then save this out. Export. I don't know where it's going to show up. Perfect. Great. We'll go up a couple levels from monster character stuff. We're going to go into dungeons, demon castle. We'll call this wall test work in progress. Save that out. Export as a PNG. Okay. Then if we come into here and then run my room processor on the demon castle, it should make a final version of that. It does. Where everything is laid out in an ISO form. We can kind of see it, but it'll become very clear when we actually bring it into the engine. Okay, so now these were the old textures we were using. If we select the top of these, go to their top texture, click here, and then do this new test one. Fingers crossed. Have to make sure that we are exactly pixel perfect. It is not lining up perfectly. Okay. Better on this side, worse on this side. I want to zoom in further. I think this is the best I'm going to get. So I know this works perfectly on the floor. So if we were to grab a floor tile and we were to change this piece here this instant. Oh, the problem is this is using a bunch of map stuff. I think I can still test this though. So if instead of this you used the test one, and then just instead of zooming in all the way, you just did a simple display like that. It does not work. Interesting. Oh, it doesn't work. It does work if I put it into there. Let's turn off the grid. Grid. Turn all the grid pieces off. That is also not displaying exactly correct. But I know this works for our floors normally. Hydration seen, hydration being redeemed. Okay. Is there something about the way that I built this texture that is wrong? Oh, it is off by 1. Let's even just do it easier here. Let's regenerate it. Should update immediately. I think I have to delete final, maybe? I just want to see if that helps. Okay, yeah, that's why. Okay, rookie mistake. So I needed to make it exactly a 32 by 16 in order for it to work with my system, I guess. But that still only works this way. It's not working this way. Is that because we rotate it? It is because we rotate it. Ooh, interesting. I have not run into this problem before. So I guess I always maintain the exact same orientation of my tiles, and therefore we always know which textures we're going to pick, or which pixels from the texture we're going to pick. But if we want to rotate these walls, it actually means that we need to have a different set of pixel movement. You know what the easiest solution to this is? The easiest solution is just to have 2 different textures. So we have like a south wall or north wall, west wall, east wall, and we go back to the old system of the tile system and we don't do any rotation on these at all, and they maintain exactly where they live. And we just have however many textures this is. 20 different wall prefabs. The only thing we would be changing with them is what material they're using. They would still all be the same mesh at the end of the day. Okay, let's continue with this test though. I just want to show what happens then if we actually grab... This is wall side. If we grab the field shared textures wall top. So I won't be able to copy this exactly, but if we have this as a reference, and try and create something similar, and just think about essentially drawing in each pixel a little bit more diagonally. We can kind of only get half of the original size of this. And I'm going to assume we can only get the original... The values of a lot of these are very similar. Even something like that should give us a broad idea. Of how this functions, so then we can do that, and then we can come back in. Do I need to delete final? Huh. I wouldn't think I would need to do that, but for some reason it's not replacing the final one. Oh, there's an error. My mic is a little bit off from stuff. Okay, let's try that again. Yeah. Is the art good? No. But we should see that that is exactly where I put each pixel, essentially. Yeah, which we saw before with the colored version. With all the like placement of colors, it's still much easier to kind of see what's happening. When it's all kind of laid out in like these alternating patterns, you can much more easily see the changes. And see that every pixel is aligning perfectly exactly where it should be. So yeah, the art wasn't good, but it allows us to make it so the art is precise, so that Drixie can actually build stuff correctly. Now the question is, do I make... Because the pattern is still somewhat consistent on the left ones once it's rotated. I could probably come up with a different algorithm. No, it's going to be easier just to kind of do a solid... Yeah, it's going to be easier to do a simple version of the wall and just have multiple different prefabs. Okay. And we won't do any rotation at all? It just seems like such a waste of efficiency. If I rotate this thing 180, does it go back to working again? Obviously, we don't get a wall in the back. Yes, because the pattern is flipped, but I think it is flipped 100% around. So we can flip textures by rotating, but we can't rotate a texture. I guess that makes sense because it's going to pick completely different pixels then. All right, all right. So I can flip something, so north and south, east and west can be the same prefab, but have their rotation swapped. But they need to be, the two variants need to be different. Because they'll need to have different textures. But the two textures they'll need will need to be identical. So that's annoying. Oh, we are still debugging. Because like if we made one like front-facing wall texture, even if we did something really simple like that, and I'm going to actually save as a new version, test 2, and then we run that, change top to use test 2 final. Yeah. I'd want to have the same thing on this side. So then I'd want to have this texture flipped, I think. Horizontally. And then save that as work in progress test 2 alternate. Demon cap locks, Demon Castle. Run this. And then if we swap this out to the alt version, these ones now work correctly. Excuse me? Excuse me? That has to just kind of be like a happenstance, because like there's clearly like a misalignment here. Demon Castle. Okay. Where'd the what version go? This one. Where's its final? Why am I not seeing a final version for that? Did I spell Demon Castle wrong? Am I losing my mind? Why is it not generating another version for this? This is these ones. It's just not making one for this? Oh, because I renamed the... No, this one's here. That's still work in progress. Fine. Test 4. Does that make you happy? No. Did I spell something wrong? No. What is your deal? Why are you refusing to create a final version of this work in progress? This is a PNG, right? Because it only works on PNGs. Yeah, it exported as a PNG. Sure. I don't know why it's working now, but all right. So moving on. If we come into here... Top, Swap that in for this one. Yeah, so if I swap it, it looks like it's pixel perfect, but it's still not quite. Some of the algorithms for how it's picking pixels is still not exactly what I would want, because this one here is getting double picked. It's very hard to see this type of thing, but like right here, this is 2 green pixels in a row, so that means it's picking this pixel here and here. So yeah, so I can't just flip it and it magically works. It looks like it works better, but it's still not working. Okay, so let's assume that there's a different texture for each one. But if I make a texture for each one, then Drixie's going to have to copy that texture, flip it, name it like left, right version, and then we're going to have to like make a different prefab for each one. That's such a pain, opposed to just being able to rotate it. I guess the easier process would be for me to try and make the system generate 2 different textures. Maybe if there's like the word flip, work in progress underscore flip is another keyword. If it sees the word flip, then it tries to make 2 different texture outputs. One for like right, but I guess, am I losing my mind again? This doesn't need to happen though. If I just don't rotate this one, if I make this top flip, and we make it so this one uses flip instead, and then we change flip to, instead of using this one, uses the same one? No, the alternate one. Yeah, no, we still need to set up a bunch of extra prefabs. It's funny, it looks so broken, but then in game it actually looks exactly how I want it to. Okay. Yeah, okay, we gotta generate a bunch of prefabs. I don't like it. I think it's like a pretty terrible way to set it up, but I also think that it is worth going through the motions and then discovering if there's a better process while creating it. Because I feel like right now I'm just spinning my wheels and lamenting the fact that I need to have 2 different textures, and that I can't just rotate the props. Okay, it's just more setup. I can make tools to make setup easier. So we're going to have a wall corner, and then we're going to have a wall corner flip, and then wall corner flip is, instead of using the top texture, is going to use top flip, which is going to point towards one of these 2. I don't remember which one I need, but this one. Oh wait, which one am I modifying? Side, top flip. Okay, top flip uses test 2 final, sure. Top uses test 2 alt final. We will come up with better names eventually. Wall will use side and top. Flip will use side and top flip. Corner will use side and corner. And that might be enough. And then we need to make a... Castle. Flip. Oh, this is named incorrectly. This should be just flip. And then we give that a new addressable name so we can load that up. And then we're going to have to come down to the tile stuff, which determines things. And we're going to have to figure out which one is which. One of these is going to need to be south facing. And its data is, no, not these ones. South facing. And it's going to need to have underscore flip in the name. I don't know which is which, but we'll try this one first. Okay. Got it right on the first time. So if we look at these prefabs here are going to be walls. No? Huh. So we didn't set it up correctly. I got tricked by my own textures. Because that one texture is very subtly different. Yeah, so this one's still busted. So is it not taking the flip variant? That's just wall. And that's just wall. Okay, so then let's add... So south facing, we added underscore flip to the name of the addressable it was looking to load. Let's do the same thing for north. And see if that works. Those are both just using normal walls. Okay, let's keep going. Let's try west. And let's just try east at the same time. So I would expect these to use some of the prefabs we're asking it to use. It is not. It is still just using wall. Let's double check and make sure that we're ray casting. I may have missed that step. Yeah, okay, we weren't ray casting. Okay. So now everything's using flip? Yes. We also need to make it so that we're not using any rotation anymore, otherwise it will be very hard to tell if anything's even doing anything. So I think here, instead of this value, we should just be taking in quaternion. Autocomplete, please. Thank you. Identity. So we're going to take out the rotation element of this because it just gives us too much trouble. With our pixel precision logic. Okay, now we should be able to run this again, and without anything rotating, I'm going to assume one of these walls is displaying correctly when it's flipped. Yeah, this one. Okay. Better. Also, does this fix the wall issue? Because now we're not rotating, so they're always facing the camera. And now we don't have to worry about the blender stuff. It does look that way, doesn't it? So I guess technically not only, so this creates a lot of extra data and a lot of extra setup, which I can get around with some more tooling, but it does help performance because we're not drawing as many faces that aren't being visible. However, we now have more models, so some of the batching that Unity does will also be diminished because we're creating more variation. I don't know. I'd have to performance check both versions to see which is better, but it's probably, you know, a little bit of one, a little bit of the other. They're probably going to even out relatively to be not that big of a deal in the end. Okay. So we need to remove some of these. Let's remove south and north. And see if that returns the right ones to their proper form. It does not. East can go. We'll give that a try. Not east. West. All right, losing my mind again. I'm not raycasting each time. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. If I don't raycast the environment, it's not going to work. So what's happening is normally I have it set up so that if I save the scene, it auto regenerates the level. The problem is that I'm not making any edits to the scene. And because I'm not editing the scene, when I hit save, it's not auto raycasting everything. Because we're only making edits inside the project itself. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try figuring out if it's north or south again. Remove both of these. Okay, save, raycast, play. I've gotten so used to that quality of life feature that save is just auto running that raycast for me that I'm not realizing when it's not operating and just assuming something is bugged. Okay, so these are both wrong. So this is wrong here. This is flipped, and this is not flipped. So we want to go the other way. So we're going to put flip back on north and south. Nope, underscore flip. So it uses that version or that prefab. Then we're going to take off east and west. Okay. All right. Try that again. I did the same thing, I think. I gotta focus right now. Okay. That has everything in the right orientation. Okay, okay, if I raycast, everything's fine. So this needs to be flipped. These need to be not flipped. Now the next thing is figuring out which one should be south and which ones should be north. It's probably an easier way to figure this out, but I'm going to trial and error my way past it. So if we say that north is what we think one of these is, we can get rid of north. And if I'm right, the flip one should disappear. If we validate that we've raycasted, we should see that it disappears. Okay. Neither of these is flipped. So south probably shouldn't be flipped, and north should be. So north is this one. Okay, interesting. So these are... This is an east entrance, and it is heading to the west side, so it would come out over here. And that's this direction here, west. But this one's also west. And that's north. And that's north. Okay, so we don't know which one's which. So all the facings are all rotated weirdly. I'm trying to see if I can like come up with some sort of orientation for my brain to figure out which way is which. I'm gonna guess that's south facing, so this would be a north side. And north was flip, but that was really west. I don't know. Let's try, I want to figure out which way the other one should be as well. So let's do flip here. And give this a shot. Window opened. Okay. I gotta remind myself, if something's weird, check to make sure you're raycasted. Don't just assume there's a bug. Okay, that's fine. That's not fine. Okay, so then that implies that west is flip. Is wrong. So I'm gonna say east should be flip. Okay. Then we're going to grab these wall pieces. We're going to bring this over to this edge of the board. And we're going to extend this one. Actually, we should be able to just grab this one and bring it over. It doesn't need to go over it to the edge. We'll just have extra tiles that we don't need. Okay, so if we've set up these correctly, we should now have properly drawing walls on all sides. We do not. This is flipped. This is not flipped. Okay, so which ones did we get wrong then? Was my assumption completely off to begin with? I assumed that it would be alternating. East would have one and west would have another, and then north and south would have one and another. But maybe it's just one side is flipped and one side isn't. We had to make a change so that we need to do a raycast. How's chat doing? We surviving this? I don't know what. We're just kind of playing with trial and error stuff here. That's wrong. That's... Oh, these are right. Oh, no. Okay. So I think this is where the 180 comes in. Does that still render correctly? It does, and it does. Okay. So they are using the right flip and the right versions of the prefabs, but we do need to flip them at... Oh, shoot. Okay, so we can't get rid of the rotation stuff entirely. Okay. 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 This is fine. This is fine. We're just working through the problem, and then once we better understand it, then we can write a more custom set of solutions for it. But I need to understand what needs to be where in order for us to create the result we're looking for. So if we go back in here and we go back to content direction to Quaternion, right? Let's add all that back in. Now, this is going to break because we're going to be rotating the west one, and we don't want to be. So this one here was, we don't know which one. East. South is west. So we know that one's west, so let's start there. If we set this one to east, does it rotate? We need to figure out which rotation is correct. Also, this has a rotation value, but I bet you that is just dead code. Okay, so this one's rotated -90 now. So it was north. We changed to east. It was -90. Let's change it to south. I don't know if I recast the last one. Okay. Let's try south. We're just going to go through each one until we find the one that causes it to not rotate in any way. That's still -90. Am I wrong about that being the west one? I am. Okay. So west is on this side. Okay, here's what we're going to do, chat. I'm going to lose my mind otherwise. We're going to make a snip. Okay, we're going to go into pure ref. We're going to go somewhere over here in this area. We're going to activate the draw tool. This is the west tile. Okay, good. Glad we... Okay. Then we're going to click this, pin it to top. Pin always on top of this program. Okay? Then we're going to move this up over here. Maybe somewhere like there. Sure. This is the west tile. Okay. Now, given that's the west tile, what was it before we modified it? It was north. Okay, so north seems to be the default position of 0, 0, 0. We can actually check that. We can come into here. We can go to this Quaternion. North is 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, perfect. And south is 180, so we should never need to change these to east or west ever. So anything that's east or west should be wrong. So we're going to just make sure that none of these are set to any of those. We're going to set them all to north. Okay? This is that, that's that, and that's that. Okay. Okay. I'm just curious, does that rotation get used at all? The go to definition, rotation of the tile. Oh, kind of. It's used during some mesh generation stuff. Okay, so that's old code, so don't delete that. I don't think I recasted, so we need to shrink this a little bit. Recast, play. I lost view of chat at some point. Morph is still live, and unlockable characters says they're thriving. Fantastic. Okay. So everything's in a good state now. Nothing has any rotation. We're now going to make it so that if this is west, what is south? Let's give this a rotation like that and see if it flips the way we want. We're going to raycast. In fact, let's also, we're not really using add inspector. Drag this one down here. Let's leave this one locked on the room so that we can just hit raycast here anytime we want. And then we can focus on just, you know, changing these values up here. Okay, so we may or may not have hit a raycast. I'm going to do it one more time. We're going to stop Unity. Okay, let's raycast the environment. And we modified one of these to be south. This one. South has been modified to be south. Which one changed? This one. Okay, fantastic. So now I think we know what's what. This is south, this is north, and this is east. Okay, so that means east also needs to have its direction flipped. I'm going to rip all this up at some point. This is a nightmare. But not today. That didn't work. Okay. Ah. That's unfortunate. So by flipping these... If we wanted to not show the back like this, we'd need to actually create another prefab, which we can solve at a later point. Okay, I'm going to assume that this is a bug because I didn't hit raycast, and we're going to try this again. All right, and then I'm going to assume that this east one changes. Come on. Was it a raycast problem? It was a raycast problem. Cool. So we now have all the walls facing the way we want them to be facing. And they are all aligned correctly. But there's maybe a world in which we don't want to rotate these still, and we want everything to be facing north, because we don't want to draw the back part. That means we need 4 different textures. We have code for this. We have inside of the tooling for tiles, sprite processor. It's not here, but if we go look inside of the console app, generate walls. In order to solve this problem, I made it so Drixie could make 1 tile. And then if we ran generate walls on the console app, it would generate every single variation of wall from that one texture. So we would need to generate... Okay, so I think... It's funny how we come full circle. Because I want the textures to always be aligned in the same kind of direction, I don't want to rotate any of the props ever. And because I want to not have to figure out how to make a full block in Blender. You know what, that's not right. What's actually right is because I don't want to draw faces where we're not actually seeing them. So whether it's on this side or whether it's on this side, I don't want to draw extra geometry if our camera is always fixed on one angle. So I think I want to make it so that we never rotate any of these tiles, which means if we want to flip the top texture up here, I think we need a different texture per each one of these. Oh, unless... Could we flip the tiling? How would I do that? -1? -1? No. There's a way to do this. I feel like there should be a way to change these tiling values to get it to flip without having to make a different texture. That might still run into the same problem though, where it picks the wrong ones. That isn't doing anything I want. Maybe there isn't. No, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, tiling just increases the scale, and offset's just going to move the position of our UVs. So no, you can't do that. Okay. So if I want to keep these cubes always facing the camera, but I want to have the top textures flipped to the other side, and I don't want to rotate it, because like I said, I want to keep it facing the camera, then we need a different texture for the top and a different material for the top of each one of these. Might be able to write a shader that does this. That might be a possibility. There's a lot of different ways to solve this problem. I'm tempted just to go with the every texture, like a different texture for every one, and a different material and a different prefab. Simply because that leads to using the tools I have already created, and I don't have to spend a day or two trying to figure out shaders in order to do what I want it to do. Yeah. For the demo, this is fastest. For the demo, this is fastest. Okay. So flip is no longer flip. We now need a different prefab. We need a different prefab per facing. And we essentially need to have a different wall piece for each one. So if this is the west side, this is a west texture. And then this one, I believe, becomes a north texture. If we flip this vertically, and then bring it back down, this becomes an east texture. And if we flip this one vertically and then bring it back down, this becomes a south texture. But again, I have a tool for this. All right, let's go back into the the history books. Oh, I don't have it set up. Nope. Oh, no, I do. Okay. All right. So this is the back-end system for some of the console app. Essentially, we can put things into this input folder, like this thing. And then if we do generate wall types, that should update the output with every single wall type texture. That we could need. So if we come back to input and we bring in, say, this guy. Let's put this in old. Actually, this system assumes that it's a full block. So this is more complicated than I would have hoped. Not the meta file. Okay, what was the original dimensions of this object? This was originally a 132 by 132 cube. And we want to make something that is, I believe, 32 by 16. So we need to shrink this down by a large margin. Sprite size, lock ratio, 50%, 25%. Okay, and then if we come into here, grab this thing, and then paste it in here, that should line up perfectly on top. And it kind of does and kind of doesn't. Okay. Let's assume my new texture system is better. Let's see what this creates. And then this wall should be able to do continuous. Let's pick a random color and just make everything that color per side. Ooh, these are not... Oh, there we go. Okay, that is one wall side. This shouldn't matter because we're not going to use the walls this way. We're going to generate walls differently. But I just want to start with something really simple to start with. And then we can adapt the tool if need be. Okay, and then if we give the outer edge all the same texture, ooh, this is hard on my eyes. These colors are too similar. Let's just make sure it's easy to see. That's a bit too neon. Okay, calm down. Still a bit too much. Much better. Okay. Actually, you know what? Sure. Let's do this. And then we will make an inner border here. It's essentially like an inner isometric cube. Okay. Okay. Now, if I save this out as this one, replace, yes, and then come back in here, drag this back into old, and then generate wall types, that failed. The console prompt is off screen, but what is the error it's giving me? Oh, it doesn't like something about this one's height. It's a 32 by 32. Was the original one an odd size in the... Wow, this is some really old stuff. Properties, details, 132 by 132. Yeah, it was even on both sides. Fun. Line 88. This doesn't look like it should be causing problems. All this stuff is so ancient. But if I can get it up and running, it should be able to generate me all the different images I need for this. Line 816. Wrong file. 816. It's breaking here. Oh, because plus 26. Of course there's some sort of hard-coded value in this system. Why? This was really about creating a very specific southeast end cap thing. I think this was a trial I did at some point. Let's just assume that we don't need this. I don't know. I wanted to function for my problem, not whatever problem I was trying to solve eons ago. Oh, that means I'm going to need to build the application again, though, because I made changes to it. Build solution. And then we should be able to go into here and then try again. That seems to no longer break. Let's delete everything. Yeah, this end cap one looks like it still kind of works even without that change. Let's take a look at one of these. I don't love the coloration it's choosing for this. Is that because I'm missing some of those colors on the outer edge? Is that why it's looking a bit odd to me? What pixels were those? Okay, let's try that. It essentially was extending each one of these by a little bit previously. Don't know why it did that. It shouldn't need it, but we'll try setting that and then delete all of these and then regenerate. It's also possible this logic doesn't work so well when we scale it down. Yeah, that still doesn't look fantastic. No, it doesn't. Okay. So this system isn't generating tiles the way I would like because it's so old that it's off of a different resolution of PNGs and it doesn't quite generate it to the format that we use anymore. It could probably be updated to work with the new system so that it actually chooses pixels that I like a little bit easier. But there's also like an aesthetic choice of like which ones we use. But I probably would prefer if it was doing something like this. No, it's a little more complicated than that. Okay. The other half of this is a little weird. The other part of this that is a little weird is the fact that it has all the wall faces on it, which obviously we don't need for infinite retries because those are separate textures. Okay. I think this is probably where I'm going to call it for this evening. I think we're getting super deep in the weeds. This was meant to be about getting like the first few tutorial maps up and running, but we've kind of gone through some ancient code for map tile wall generation, but I think it's valuable because we need to have some of this stuff in order to be able to kind of start making some interior spaces. It definitely feels like we are feature creeping a little bit here at the end of the demo, but I do think what's going to end up being maybe a day or two of work is going to make the thing feel a lot better just by having the extra zone in the beginning. I don't know, it's a judgment call, but I think that it's the right call to try and build out this environment and try and get the walls up and running. I'm probably going to keep poking at this a little bit more off screen. There's a lot of just like small things that need to be examined, and it's just going to require a lot of quiet contemplation, I think. We'll be back tomorrow though, with some more balance patch stuff. Oh wow, we're also way over time. No wonder I'm starting to feel a little burnt out as well. So we're going to come back with some we're going to come back tomorrow with some balance pass stuff, some stats, some design trees, probably. Honestly, more likely is that we're going to continue where I want it to kind of work here. We're probably going to keep building out the tutorial flow because we didn't actually get to building the 3 new maps at all. Yeah, just keep pushing this stuff forward on the schedule. Just a representation of the fact that I didn't quite estimate the week as well as I would like. Anyways, for now though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.